There's a kind of silence that settles in a house when your child has cut you out. It's not the quiet of peace. It's the absence of something once sacred. Laughter echoing down the hallway, the clatter of a kettle warming 2 mugs, the casual way a daughter walks through your door without knocking. That silence lived with me for days after Sophie told me not to come to her wedding. She didn't say it in anger. That's the part that gutted me. It was clinical, efficient, like she was excising a tumor. "I think it's best if you don't come," she said. "It'll only be awkward." She didn't wait for me to protest. Just turned her gaze back to her laptop, a seating chart glowing on the screen. "I'm a composed woman. Always have been. 40 years in academia teaches you to keep your voice level and your spine straight, even when the floor disappears beneath you." So I nodded, smiled faintly and said, "If that's what you want." It wasn't. I knew where it started. His name was Daniel. Perfect jawline, expensive shoes, and a smile that never reached his eyes. The moment I met him, I felt the calculation behind the charm. He said all the right things, but they were just that, things. Practiced. Polish. Hello. But Sophie, my brilliant guarded girl, fell for him. Hard. She said I was too suspicious. That I didn't want her to be happy. That I never liked anyone she dated. That last part was true. But not for the reasons she thought. During the wedding planning, our conversations grew clipped. She would mention venues, and I'd gently suggest something simpler. She'd talk about Daniel's parents, the kind of people who named their wine cellar, and I'd raise an eyebrow. She saw judgment in every look. Maybe it was there. Maybe I just didn't hide it well enough. One night she snapped. "You can't stand that I'm not doing it your way. That I'm not marrying someone like Dad." I flinched, not at the insult, but at the mention of her father, a man who hadn't been in either of our lives for over a decade. "I just want you to be sure," I said. "I am," she replied. "But I'm not sure I want you there." The days that followed were heavy. I bought a dress anyway, a navy silk piece with a modest neckline and a matching clutch. I kept it hanging where I could see it, like some pathetic protest. When the wedding day came, I stayed home. Poured myself a glass of wine at noon. Walked past the mirror without looking. I didn't cry. Not until midnight, when the house felt impossibly large, and her absence echoed through every room. That's when the silence started. I thought that was the end of it. But the next morning there was a knock on my door. And when I opened it, it was Daniel, my daughter's brand new husband, standing there, eyes red, hands shaking. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. The knock came just after 7 a.m. At first I thought I'd dreamt it. The house was still hushed, the kind of stillness you get only after a night of heavy thinking and heavier wine. But then it came again, 3 quiet, hesitant knocks. Not urgent, almost apologetic. I wrapped my robe around me and padded barefoot to the door. Daniel stood there in his wedding tuxedo, looking as if he hadn't slept. His bow tie was undone, collar open, hair disheveled. His eyes, normally a little too confident, were bloodshot, glassy, haunted. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. For a moment I just stared. I could smell stale cologne and champagne and something bitter underneath. Regret, maybe. Or fear. I stepped aside. "Come in." He moved like someone in a trance, walking past the foyer into the living room as if he'd been there 1,000 times. He hadn't. Daniel had only been in my home once, briefly, stiffly, when he first started seeing Sophie. He'd called it quaint. I never forgot that. "Sit," I said. "I'll make tea." In the kitchen I worked on autopilot. Kettle on. Tea bags in cups. I pressed my hands to the cool marble counter and took a slow breath. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. When I returned, he was slouched on the sofa, elbows on his knees, rubbing his face like he could scrub away whatever had happened the night before. I handed him a mug and sat across from him. Silence stretched between us, long and tight like a pulled wire. "I know this is strange," he said finally. I just waited. He looked up at me, and for a flicker of a moment, I saw a different version of him, one I hadn't seen before. less polished, less in control. She left, he said. And blinked. Sophie. He nodded. After the reception. Said she needed to think. That she couldn't do this. My grip on the mug tightened. What does that mean, couldn't do this? I don't know, he whispered. She was fine 1 minute. Cold but composed. And then she just snapped. Said she couldn't sleep next to someone who lied for a living. That it wasn't just about me. That I should talk to you. My breath caught. She told you to come here. No. She didn't say it exactly. But she mentioned you. He said. She knows more than she thinks. A chill moved down my spine. Daniel's voice broke. I don't even know if she's safe. I stared at him, my mind racing. None of this made sense. And yet, something deep inside me stirred. A memory, a warning, a missed moment. He wasn't just shaken. He was unraveling. And somehow it was tied to me. The wedding had happened without me. But now I was in the middle of something I didn't yet understand. And it had only just begun. Daniel sat across from me, his tea untouched. His hands clasped so tightly I could see the whites of his knuckles. He looked nothing like the man who'd charmed rooms full of donors and board members with tailored smiles and perfect posture. Now he looked like a boy who'd wandered too far from safety. She wasn't herself, he said quietly. At the wedding, the rehearsal, even weeks before. It was like she was staging something. I raised an eyebrow. Staging what? He looked up at me and I caught it again. That flicker of panic beneath his well-trained expression. He hesitated, clearly trying to decide how much to say. Then, like a dam cracking, the words began to pour out. It started the night before the wedding, he said. We were in the suite, going over last-minute details. She looked at me and asked if I'd written my vows. Said yes. Then she said. His throat bobbed. You don't know what she's capable of. And blinked. She said that. About me. He nodded slowly. I asked her what she meant. She just smiled. Not a sweet smile. Cold one. Like she was amused by something I hadn't caught on to yet. I didn't speak. Just watched him carefully. I thought she was nervous, he went on. But then I found things. In the drawer at the estate. Letters. Photos. Stuff she kept hidden. From years ago. Some of it about you. My spine straightened. What kind of things? He looked away. I shouldn't have read them. But I did. And now. I don't know what's real anymore. I narrowed my eyes. Try. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of notebook paper. This was in the drawer. It wasn't dated, but it looked old. I unfolded it and read the slanted handwriting I hadn't seen in over a decade. It was Sophie's. She says she loves me but doesn't see what's happening right under her nose. Every time I try to tell her, she changes the subject. She talks about books and college and getting past things. But I'm not past it. I'm still there. Trapped. My blood went cold. Daniel's voice was soft. She wrote others. Some had pieces cut out. Some were just drawings. Closet full of old things. It felt obsessive. I remembered Sophie at 15. Withdrawn, moody. Her father had left that year. A sudden exit wrapped in vague explanations and polite silence. I told myself Sophie was just grieving a broken home. But now Daniel's words echoed louder. She's been planning something, he said. I don't know what. But I don't think she married me for love. A long silence stretched between us. You think she married you to get to me? Asked finally. He looked up and for the first time I saw fear. Not of her, but of something he couldn't define. I think she's trying to force something into the light, he said. And she's using both of us to do it. I studied him. You know she's always been intense. Private. But she loved fiercely. When she was little, she'd sit outside the library and wait for me to come out, just to hold my hand for the walk home. He smiled faintly. That sounds like her. She was different after her father left, I said, more to myself than to him. quieter, angrier. But she never said anything about feeling unsafe or hurt. She never said it to me either, Daniel said. Not directly, but she hinted that something happened, that you might have known. My chest tightened. I stood, moved to the window. Outside, the sun had crept over the rooftops, lighting up the dew on the lawn. It was a beautiful morning. Too beautiful for this kind of conversation. I didn't know, I said slowly. If there was something to know. I didn't know. Daniel didn't respond. He just stared into his tea like it held some kind of answer. I turned back to him. You think she's punishing me? He didn't deny it. For a long moment I felt nothing. Just numbness. Then a slow, cold unraveling. I thought of the dress still hanging in my closet. A silk. The shoes I'd never worn. The silence. She cut me out of her wedding, I said quietly. But somehow I'm still in the middle of whatever this is. Daniel met my eyes. She didn't want you there because she couldn't look at you and lie. Something cracked in me. Not loudly, but with the soft, aching sound of something finally making sense. I didn't know the whole story, but I was beginning to suspect it started long before Daniel came into the picture. And maybe I hadn't been as innocent as I thought. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch. His long frame curled awkwardly, jacket draped over the armrest like a shroud. I watched him for a moment, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths, and I felt the weight of something I couldn't yet name. Grief. Guilt. Maybe both. I moved quietly, picking up his jacket to hang it over the back of the chair. As I did, something crinkled in the inner pocket. Not the neatly folded sheet he'd shown me earlier. Something else. Torn, worn, as if it had been crumpled in a moment of rage or regret. I hesitated, then pulled it out. It was a fragment of a letter. Sophie's handwriting unmistakable. Slanted, fierce, emotional. I thought I loved you, but it's all just a pattern repeating. You try to be different, but you're not. Not really. I see the same shadows, the same cold silences. She made me this way. Ask her what really happened in 2008. My knees nearly buckled. The year her father left. The year Sophie was hospitalized. We told everyone, even ourselves, that it was exhaustion, school stress, emotional burnout from the divorce. But now, holding this letter, I felt the tight coil of denial begin to unravel. I moved like a ghost through the house, up the stairs to the attic, pulling the old string light above the beams. Dust floated like memory in the golden haze. There it was, a brown box labeled 2008 Private, in my own handwriting. I packed it away years ago. Thought I'd never open it again. Inside were my journals. Soft leather covers, pages worn thin with time and ink. I flipped through them, hands trembling. March 2008. Sophie screamed again tonight. I told her to calm down, but she kept saying he scared her. She wouldn't look me in the eye. Just kept saying, "You don't see it. You don't see what he does when you're not here." April 2008. He said Sophie was lying. Said she was emotional, manipulative, that she was jealous of the attention he gave others. But something didn't sit right. She locked her bedroom door for the first time. She started flinching when he entered the room. May 2008. He left. I told him I needed space. Told Sophie it was because we weren't getting along. She didn't cry. She just nodded and asked if he was coming back. Said no. She slept through the night for the first time in weeks. I pressed the journal to my chest and sank to the floor. All this time I told myself I'd done the right thing. That removing him quietly was enough. That protecting her didn't require explanations or confessions. I buried the suspicions. I let silence do the healing. But Sophie hadn't forgotten. She hadn't forgiven. And now I saw the truth in her actions. She didn't cut me out of the wedding to hurt me. She did it to shield me. From Daniel. From his questions. From whatever plan she'd set into motion. I had been blind. Too wrapped in my own pride, my own pain. Now everything was shifting. And I wasn't sure who I was protecting anymore. The journal still lay open on the floor of the attic, its inked words bleeding back into my memory like spilled wine on linen. I didn't know how long I sat there before I heard the creak of footsteps below, followed by a low, uncertain voice. "Hello, Daniel." I took the journal with me, descending the attic steps as if emerging from some ancient tomb. My chest was tight, my mouth dry. But my voice, when it finally came, was clear and steady. "What do you know about 2008? Daniel stood in the middle of the hallway, barefoot now, his jacket off, shirt wrinkled. He looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. What? Don't play dumb, Daniel. You said Sophie left things in the drawer. That she hinted at something. I found this." I held up the torn letter. She said, "Ask her what really happened in 2008. "So I'm asking you, what did she tell you?" His face drained of color. "She said," he faltered, rubbed a hand over his face. "She said her father hurt her. That it started just before the divorce. She didn't give me details. Just that something happened. And that you knew. Or at least, she believed you did." Closed my eyes. The words hit like a blunt force to the chest. "She told you I knew." Daniel nodded, hesitating. "She said she screamed for you once. That she told you he was scaring her. That you told her to stop exaggerating. She said after that, she never trusted you again." The weight of it, the sharp sting of that long-buried memory, crashed over me. I remembered the night. I was making dinner. Sophie was upstairs. Music loud, then suddenly silence. Shout. A door slammed. Then the scream. I'd run up the stairs, found her in tears. Her father standing calmly in the hallway, arms crossed. "She's being dramatic," he said. Teenage mood swings. I'd believed him. Or maybe I wanted to. Maybe it was easier to file that night away as adolescent theatrics than to confront the horror growing beneath our roof. "I didn't know," I whispered. "Not for sure. I suspected something was wrong, yes. I saw changes in her. But I never saw him touch her. Never heard him say anything. Twisted. He was always careful with me." Daniel looked down. "That's what she said too. That he was different with you. Charming. Controlled." I felt my knees buckle and sank onto the nearest chair, the journal clutched against my chest. "She thinks I failed her." Daniel crouched beside me. His expression no longer accusatory. Just sat. "She doesn't hate you," he said softly. "She just couldn't forgive you. Not yet. She told you all this. Why marry you then?" He sighed. "She didn't want to. Not at first. But she said being with me felt like rewriting the pattern. Like maybe she could control the ending this time. But as the wedding got closer, she got more anxious. Distant. She said she wanted to confront you at the reception, to finally tell you everything. But she panicked. She said you'd look at her with that calm face of yours and make her feel like a child again." His words stung because they were true. I had spent years perfecting composure. Teaching myself to control emotion to appear unshakable. Even in moments when I was deeply shaken. And in doing so, I taught Sophie that her feelings would always be smaller than my logic. "She didn't want me at the wedding," I said quietly. "Not because she hated me. But because she couldn't bear to look me in the eye while she said her vows. While she lied to herself." Daniel nodded. "She told me that the night before. She said she couldn't stand under that altar and pretend nothing happened." Tears blurred my vision. I wiped them away with the sleeve of my robe. "She left you." He nodded. "I think she knew I wasn't what she needed. And I think she came to that realization only because she finally allowed herself to feel it. Really feel it." I looked at him, surprised by the gentleness in his tone. "I didn't come here to punish you," he said. "I came because I didn't know where else to go. And maybe, because some part of her hoped I would. So you'd finally hear the truth." I broke then, truly broke. Not the quiet grief I'd carried in silence for years. But a deep, aching sob that shook through my spine. I had failed her. I had failed my daughter. Daniel reached out and placed a hand on mine. "Not as a husband. not as a man looking for answers. Just as someone who'd been pulled into Sophie's orbit and left changed by it. "I'm sorry," he said. "For all of it." I nodded through tears. "So am I." The letter took me nearly 3 hours to write. I poured everything into it. Every memory, every misstep, every quiet ache I'd ignored for years. I wrote about 2008. About what I saw. What I didn't see. About the ways I failed her without realizing it. And the ways I tried to protect her too quietly, too late. I didn't justify. I didn't defend. I just told the truth. At the end I wrote, "I don't deserve forgiveness, Sophie. But I am asking for honesty. For a beginning, if not a resolution." I folded the letter, sealed it, and held it in my lap for an hour before setting it aside. Then I reached for the phone. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. I didn't expect her to answer. Then a click. Silence. Breath. "Hello." Her voice was cautious, edged with steel. "Sophie," I said, "you don't have to say anything. Just listen, please." She didn't hang up. "You were right to keep me away," I said softly. "But I'm not running anymore. I know I missed things. I know I hurt you. But I'm here now. And I want to know the truth. All of it." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, shaky. Then, barely above a whisper. "He made me promise not to tell you. He said it would destroy you. Thought you knew. I thought you just didn't care." My chest tightened. I cared. I just didn't know how to believe what I was afraid to see. Another silence. Finally she said, "I don't know if I can forgive you." "You don't have to," I replied. "Just meet me. That's all I'm asking." "Okay," she said. "One coffee. That's all." It wasn't everything. But it was more than I deserved. It was a beginning. 1 year to the day after the ceremony I missed, we gather again, this time on the wind-smoothed bluff behind a small lakeside chapel in Vermont. No string quartet, no choreographed drones, no champagne tower. Just Sophie, Daniel, an officiant in a wool coat, and me. Sophie steps toward us in a simple ivory dress that ends at her calves and sways in the October breeze. No veil, no diamonds. Only a sprig of lavender tucked behind her ear. She smiles at Daniel, and it's different from the practiced smiles I remember. It reaches the soft places in her eyes. Daniel looks like a man who has walked through fire and decided to stay gentle anyway. He clasps her hands. The officiant's voice drifts over the water like birdsong. They repeat vows rewritten in their own ink, promises about truth, listening, and leaving every door open for light. I watch, not from the margins but beside them, invited and unafraid. My heart beats with a quiet gratitude I once thought impossible. When they seal their vows with a kiss, there is only the hush of wind through evergreens and the small, startled cry of a loon. Daniel wipes a tear. His, not hers, and laughs under his breath. Sophie turns, walks straight to me, and folds herself into my arms. This hug is not polite or tentative. It is bone-deep, unedited. I feel her shoulders sag, as if she set down a burden she carried too long. I hold on until she loosens first. We wander to a weather-worn bench overlooking the lake, our dresses brushing fallen leaves. Daniel lingers with the officiant, giving us space. For a while we say nothing, just share the silence that once wounded us and now stitches us together. The water ripples silver under late autumn sun. Clouds move like slow ships overhead. Sophie finally leans her head against my shoulder. "Thank you for coming," she whispers. "Thank you for asking," I answer. I thread our fingers together, hers steady, mine still learning. I don't pretend the past is mended. Scars remain as they should. But here, in this spare moment, I see the shape of something sturdy and new growing between us. This, I think, is what healing looks like, never perfect, always honest, and finally real.